In 2006, the groundbreaking report, Out of the Shadows at Last, Transforming Mental Health, Mental Illness, and Addiction Services in Canada, was released by the Senate Standing Committee on Social Affairs, Science, and Technology. This document represents the first national report on the state of Canada's mental health from the diverse perspectives of politicians, government officials, mental health professionals, and many ordinary Canadians who testified before the committee. 9 years later, Guidelines for Recovery-Oriented Practice, Hope, Dignity, Inclusion, was published by the Mental Health Commission of Canada. These two documents provide the foundation for understanding mental health and substance use recovery. Recovery is being promoted as a personal journey towards wellness with no prescribed approach. However, these policies construct a certain type of recovery for a certain type of person, a responsible citizen who actively chooses to seek support from family, friends, and communities, partner with healthcare professionals, and fulfill their economic and social roles. When people with substance use issues do not or cannot access this valued recovery identity, they are often stigmatized. The following actors represent real people who came forward to talk about their understandings of recovery and their experiences of stigma in rural areas. Their words highlight the ways in which they are excluded from full citizenship, despite the promotion of a recovery-oriented approach.
Like, recovery is to be like normal, healthy, clean cut, I guess. Like a good consumer, I guess. I don't know what society wants from me. Sometimes I feel like a broken vase, and to recover would be like to be refurbished, not broken inside. I want to have goals in life, and I want to be able to not be a freaking loser drug addict all the time. I want to have things. I want to be a veterinarian and have a house and have money to be able to do things and buy things.
It's like my family have a timeline for my life, and I'm always not meeting the mark. Like, it's time for a job, which I'm 23. I should have a job, I do agree, but it's not that simple. If I was like a functional depressive, if I had a job I continually went to school and was getting my grade 12 and then moved on to college, then everyone would think I'm fine and would be proud of me.
There's a norm to society, 9-to-5 job, having a spouse, having a family to take care of after your job. Responsibilities of raising a family. If you don't fit that norm, then you'd probably be a substance abuser, because what substance abuser has a stable family life or a stable job? They don't.
Recovery is a normal life. Working, coming home, developing your circle. Like, a normal life is when you go home and you go to work and you support yourself. And then you go home and support the people around you. And then if you can, support people in your community or whatever else. I think that's a normal life. And that's what the addiction people can't have, a normal life.
My family don't want my problems around their house, and not because I did anything to them. I didn't hurt them. I didn't steal from them. I just embarrassed them.
There was not support from my family. My parents blamed me. I know I've done some bad things, but I know my own heart, and I'm a good person.
When it was my mental health, My family was all there, helping me, and helping me. So sympathetic and compassionate. But once the addiction happened, I was a three-legged animal. Oh, we're not going to bother inviting him. He's an addict. I don't want him around our kids. I am completely estranged from my immediate family. They don't talk to me. They don't bother with me. They see me on the street and they just walk past me.
People really put me down, looking at me, saying like, why don't you have a bath? Why don't you clean your clothes? Why don't you get a job? Things like that, like on the street, real confrontation. And that really hurts. Made me feel like I was dirt.
I had $5 and I was trying to exchange something so I could get something for my kids. She was just being really rude, and I think it was because obviously the way I was dressed. And my dad was there and my boyfriend. They both have scruffy beards. And my dad's skinny and, they probably think there's a crackhead.
The greatest stigma I felt was through my church. The church wouldn't in no way accept the fact that I was back into relapse. And so it wasn't something I could even share or admit to even a small amount of people. When I finally did start to admit things, it was all carefully constructed around mental health. And alcohol was brought in a bit. Just because those were more acceptable that the church could deal with compared to drug use.
I'm a red flag. The doctor didn't even care about looking at my lungs. All he thought was that I was at the hospital looking for someplace to stay, because he couldn't even fathom that. The doctor makes $90,000 a year, and I have no place to live. He can't even fathom having no place to live.
I had iritis and I went to the hospital. Well, we're not going to give you any drugs. And I'm like, I'm not here for that. I'm here for antibiotics. But because I'm a drug addict, they don't care. Nurse said, well, you're going to have to go see a specialist. You're going to have to go to the city. And I'm like, I don't have the money to get there. And so they wouldn't treat my eye.
I had 3 kidney stones, and it was proven. They did an ultrasound. But do you think they'd give me anything for the pain? I said to my doctor, if I wasn't on methadone or have all these track marks, you'd be giving me pain medication. Because I had the same thing as the guy 2 beds down from me, and I know what they were giving him. He was about my age. Because he's in a dress coat and a tie, and I'm in jeans and a t-shirt and don't have a fixed address, and he does. He can have it, and I can't.
I was trying to be honest with the nurse, and I said I'm an addict. And because I used the word addict and not alcoholic, they jumped to the conclusion that I was a drug addict using needles. And they gave me a lecture about sexual diseases. She was superimposing a stigma that I was recklessly sexually active, rampantly in the community.
They just want you to get a job, and continue. They don't understand. I'm homeless. I haven't showered in a week. I haven't slept in 3 days. I haven't eaten. Where do you think I can get a job? Do you honestly think I'm prepared for an interview? They can't conceive, sitting in their home, watching TV, and in a warm environment with money in their pocket.
I'm scared to divulge my addiction because obviously who would they pick to hire? The addict or the non-addict? Obviously the addict wouldn't get picked. A lot of people think they're better because they have jobs and all these things that they want and need, and you're just a loser because you're a drug addict and you don't have anything.
It's like you have to be a productive member of society, like in the rat race again. And, oh, they've recovered. Look at them. They don't even realize that there's a Tim Hortons on every corner. Caffeine is a drug. And the reason there's so many of them and it's legal is so that people will get up, go to work, and come back. The reason alcohol is legal is it dumbs people down so that on the weekend when they come home and they grab their case of beer, it dumbs them down to the fact that society is pushing them to work all the time in these little cubicles. Just sit in the highway for 2 hours.
I lost my job because of my injury, right? All of a sudden, I'm a fucking piece of shit. Certain people think you should be fucking working, right? I'm one of those people who thinks you should be working too, but come on. You don't tell a guy in a wheelchair to pick up a fucking ladder and climb it, right?
I talked to the nurse at the hospital because I knew my baby would be born with the methadone. I told her how I was struggling with cocaine use as well. So she said, "Would you like me to refer you to CAS? They're a service that can help you." Okay, sure. I was 7 months pregnant when they finally came to the house. I was just a really open person and I didn't know these people were going to take my child. So these two women said, "Yeah, we're going to apprehend your child." I said, "What is the apprehension of a child? Like, what does that even mean?" "Well, we're going to take your kid." I was like, "What?" Like, I have my mother, my spouse has his parents. I was just shocked. And, I dealt with all that guilt and, not being able to be a parent. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and I was traumatized emotionally from it. I just felt like there was nothing for someone in my position. A woman who wants to be a mother, is trying to be a mother, doesn't know how to be, because I'm not allowed to be.
The Office of the Children's Lawyer, they dig into everything. I was very open and honest about my mental health issues, my addiction treatment. When they wrote about it, it was almost like, wow, look at all the problems she's had. To me, it was like, well, look at all the help she went to get.
I think one of the reasons I want to leave this town is more resources, obviously, and more job opportunities. People know you and then they talk, and so everybody knows you, and before long you're walking down the street and people are saying like, "Hey, crackhead."
If you get in trouble, well, the whole town knows about it. And you could be judged upon it. They put it in every paper. All the neighbors seen it. And when they threw it all out of court, they didn't put that back in the paper, right?
If you grew up here, you know everyone. You know the person that works at the drugstore. To admit it to one person is like admitting it to the world. And there's always going to be judgments. And you're always worried that's going to be someone's aunt.
Dominant assumptions associate recovery with, quote unquote, a normal life, a job, house, car, money, family, friends, and community. However, people with substance use issues are systematically excluded from this life and are routinely stigmatized and discriminated against. Despite this, people demonstrate significant resilience and resistance.
I couldn't care less what anyone has to say about me or the choices I've made, because they haven't lived my life.
Life's too short to take things personally. I've let it get me down before, and I've had suicide attempts from it. And it's just not worth it now. Words are just words, and either you're gonna be okay or you're not. And then you realize you are okay.
You can think whatever you want of me. I mean, as long as I'm happy at the end of the day, I don't give a shit. And once you got that label, and people are like thinking, he's an addict, he'll probably rip me off. It's not a fact. I'm probably one of the most honest people you'll probably talk to today. It's a priority for me to be congruent, to be like genuine in some way.
I do maintain certain morals and things like that, things that I'm really proud of. You can have morals and values when you're an addict. I recently listed a couple of my photographs printed on canvas and a few of my paintings posted on social media, and people were like shocked that I was capable. No one saw it because I was just an addict. I'm happy. I can think. I love to do art. I love to write. And I'm starting to find out who I really am. I'm not flawed at all. I think I'm a fairly strong person. And there's people that aren't judging me, that know that I do have something to offer.
I don't know why people are judged for having addictions. Because it is a sickness, and it is a disease, and it's not their fault. I accept it as a disease, but I also think it's part of the human component.
I'm not a pill. I'm not a bag of Coke. I'm me. I'm not a terrible person. You don't want to be identified as an alcoholic. You're someone who's... I know it sounds like semantics, but you're someone who's living with alcoholism. But that's not who you are.
I think stigma comes from ignorance. It comes from a lack of comprehension of the human condition.
I usually try and educate people on, anybody could be using. Your neighbor could be using. You wouldn't know.
People with substance use issues, they're not worthless. They're not useless. They're people. They're still human beings. And they're still individuals who deserve love and respect like everyone else. They're still your loved one. It's your brothers, your sisters. Addiction affects a lot of people. And it doesn't matter where you come from or who you are, you should still be loved.
It doesn't make sense that people are going without medical care because they had a history of substance abuse. Then they're going to go buy some cheaper form of heroin or fentanyl, and then they're going to end up overdosing because their tooth hurts.
The social norm is that you get all dressed up and you go out to the bar and you go drinking. Or you're watching an advertisement on TV and it's for beer. And everybody's around the pool having a good time. It's almost as if they're saying, if you're sitting at home reading a book, why aren't you having fun with all these people drinking alcohol and sitting around a pool?
Since I was a kid, long before that, they were telling you the negative effects and terrible things about marijuana. And now they're selling it to you. So what? It's more acceptable now because why? Because you can make money off it without a bunch of people caring now?
The media uses terms like accidental overdose when musicians or actors end up dead. It's almost like their stature is just a little bit greater than someone dying on the street with a needle in their arm. Like, if someone accidentally dies in the bathroom of a 5-star hotel, it's somehow more sanitized, and we say accidental overdose about celebrities. But we don't use those terms for people dying on the street. Those are accidental overdoses too, right?
Although recovery is supposed to be a unique personal journey, the recovery concept is used to shape ideal citizens who take responsibility for their wellness, reach out for help, and meet their obligations. But clearly, it's not that simple. The voices in this film illustrate the ways in which people are routinely excluded from society. Recovery requires more emphasis on identifying, challenging, and changing our own biases and beliefs. It requires a greater focus on dismantling stereotypical assumptions that are embedded in our social systems and structures. Recovery calls us to resist stigma and discrimination and to foster social inclusion.